They will hate you for this. They'll call you a shill, believe you to be a townward believer. They'll say that you hate poor people, that bro is just coping. Mr. Smith's name will be defiled and blasphemed. Reddit will be in a frenzy. A legion of nameless, faceless, private accounts with anime profile pictures will show up in your comment sections. They're gonna hurl many insults your way. Why no stainless steel frets? They're too perfect. They're boring. It's all in the pickups, mate. Pulls a shit. My Harley Benz just as good. A godless people they are, Harrison, while they worship their science deities. Jim Lil this, Jim Lil that. These people are the science-based lifters of the guitar community, the twinks who follow Jeff Nippard and espouse his teachings, while never having earned a callus on their hands in their prepubescent life. They might even call you an agent of Mossad. Loud they may be, Harrison, you know one thing to be true. They just got based last week. You've seen everyone's early life section. Everyone's worried about Stranger Things Season 5 while you've mastered the art of noticing over 1 decade ago when it wasn't fashionable and when it wasn't profitable. And here they are. They want to say everything is Mossad. Candace. Cursed be the name of the one Glen Fricker. Harrison, you've got the truth on your side. Deliver to these people what they need. Deliver the truth to them. You're ready. Tell them.
Okay. The PRS Core Custom 24 might be worth the $4,600 price tag, and I'm here to tell you why.
In my humble 1 year of posting on social media, I have noticed that PRS receives quite a bit of hate. There are a lot of people who do not share my sentiment that Paul and PRS build and design phenomenal guitars that are often worth their price point at every level, from the SE lines to the S2s and to the core models. We're not going to talk about private stock in this video, but what we are going to do is analyze some of the most common criticisms levied against Paul and the build team, and we're also going to talk about why I think my Custom Core 24 is worth the price tag. Custom 24 core model, not whatever the fuck I just said. We're going to try to keep this very objective because there are legitimate criticisms towards PRS. I am not just a fanboy trying to justify a very expensive purchase. I do like the guitars and there is some bias there, but I also can try to meet you guys halfway, and hopefully you can do the same for me when I try to justify spending $4,600 on a production guitar. We're going to begin with the criticisms, many of which I understand and partially agree with, while some of it I think comes from a place of misunderstanding. One of the most common criticisms I see against PRS is that they don't use stainless steel frets, not on any models, not the most expensive private stock models, the imports, they're more metal-based guitars. They are nowhere to be found in the entire PRS catalog of guitars. In the modern day of 2025, almost 2026, yeah, that's kind of wild not having stainless steel frets anywhere to be found. People want stainless steel frets for the increased durability, and so they can pretend like they play a lot more guitar than they actually do and need constant refrets every 2 months. And they're not really wrong, because stainless steel frets will last multiple lifetimes, but this has become something of a mandatory spec for a lot of people, where even on cheaper import models, they've come to expect it on Harley Bentons at this point, without realizing that there are different grades of stainless steel frets, just like there's higher quality nickel that will last significantly longer than cheaper nickel. Some of the stainless steel frets found on Harley Benton, for example, or these sub $1,000 guitars, are not nearly as high quality as something like Jescar stainless steel frets, so that's something to be mindful of. But going back to PRS, there's a very intentional reason why they don't use stainless steel frets. It's not because they hate you or because they're trying to cheap out on you, which is what I think a lot of people believe is the reason for them not using stainless steel frets. A lot of them think that it's because Paul is trying to save $1 on you, which at that price range, I don't think that many expenses are getting spared, especially not stainless steel frets. The way I see it, there are 3 reasons why a company would use nickel over stainless steel frets. And the first is because they are cheaper, the second is because they feel different, and the third is that they sound different. PRS uses nickel frets because Paul likes the tone they produce over stainless steel frets. And before we get into that whole tone wood debate, there are many high-end guitars that often use nickel frets, even high-end signature guitars. Take for instance the Josh Smith signature Jackson. Take for instance the Andy Timmons signature Ibanez, where he explicitly said that he likes the tone produced by nickel over stainless steel frets.
Nickel frets, stainless steel are cool, but I'm really particular about my tone and I really prefer the sound of nickel. So I love the nickel frets.
Now I don't want to sit here and just appeal to the authority of famous guitar players and their beliefs about what affects electric guitar tone. I just wanted to point out that people often choose nickel frets not as a cost-saving measure. A lot of people seem to believe that any guitar over X amount of dollars should automatically have stainless steel frets. And if that's you, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just here to say that there are reasons why companies don't do that. Now, PRS honestly should use stainless steel frets on some of their models, specifically the Mark Holcomb model, which is obviously geared towards heavy metal players who are the crowd that generally is expecting stainless steel frets on guitars over $1,500 or whatever it may be. I did a review of this BC Rich H string and talked about how I like it better than my Kiesel, and a lot of people said, yeah, but it has nickel frets and it's $1,700. And there's going to be a lot of people who look at PRS in the same light. I would buy the Mark Holcomb model, but it doesn't have stainless steel frets. I would buy an S2 Custom 24, but it doesn't have stainless steel frets. So I think that PRS would be smart to just put stainless steel frets in there and bump the price a little bit. Everything is getting more expensive. And I'm saying this as a guy who prefers nickel frets. PRS, start putting stainless steel on some of your models, like the Custom 24 metal. The next thing I see a lot of is that Paul is a shill who is actively lying to you and trying to deceive you on what makes an electric guitar sound, look, and feel good, so that way he can make, again, a quick buck on you off of an overpriced guitar while lying about things like tone wood and bridge construction and the tuners affecting the sound of the guitar. All right, there's a lot to unpack with that. Let's start with he's a shill and he's lying to you, like engaging in false and deceitful marketing. Let's start with that. To be clear, I'm coming at this with the angle of someone who believes that he is intentionally doing this. I just don't think that that's true. I think Paul is buying whatever he's selling. I think the shit that he says, he genuinely believes it. He might come off as arrogant and narcissistic, but he believes himself. I don't think that he is lying when he says the bridge material affects the sound of an electric guitar, or anything that comes into contact with the strings, like the tuners, is going to affect the sustain or the tone. I'm sorry, but I find it hard to believe that he's outwardly lying to you. He might exaggerate stuff for marketing purposes, but what company doesn't do that? In my intro skit, I talked about people who believe that everything is a conspiracy, that everyone is a lying shill trying to get one up on you. As a person who's been based long before this new Renaissance era of Instagram that we're living through, I know that it feels good to feel like you know something that other people don't, and like you're the guy not getting fooled, that you can see through the liar. And I think that sometimes we over-project that onto everything. Everything is like a lying conspiracy. And often, with the case of the United States geopolitics with Israel, yeah, that might be the case. But in some cases, like with guitar builders, I think they're just passionate and come off as arrogant assholes, but they believe themselves. And now you might say, okay, well then still, why is he charging that much money for a guitar? You can get something cheaper just as good. We'll get into the whole just as good thing, but in terms of the value of the guitar, a guitar is worth whatever people will pay for it, and people are obviously buying a lot of PRS guitars. They're buying a lot of core models, they're buying a lot more S2s, it appears like, and the SE models are doing extremely well. A guitar is worth whatever people will pay for it, and that is a 6-string TV quote, yes. A lot of people seem to look at the location a guitar was made and then the piece of paper known as the spec sheet as the sole sources of determining the value of that guitar, while ignoring any of the handwork that goes into it, the fit and finish, the execution, stuff that can't really be measured on the piece of paper. And again, I'm not to say that, well, why does that mean that it has to be $4,000? You can get a Kiesel for this amount. I get it, but I get it. They're expensive ass guitars, and later I'm going to try to justify that, but we got to address a few more of the criticisms really quick. A lot of people really do not like the PRS quintessential look, which is the flame maple cap or veneer paired with an often bright color and a gloss finish. Which, if that's you, there's nothing I can do to change your mind, because as we know, looks are entirely subjective. But to me, this guitar looks how I imagine a big booty goth chick looks to you guys. A lot of people also think that PRS guitars are boring, which if you've tried their guitars and they don't resonate with you, you don't feel any mojo with them, they don't inspire you in any way, again, there's really nothing I can do to change your mind other than to encourage you to try maybe a different model of PRS, but there's nothing I can do. Maybe you don't like the way a 10-inch radius pairs with a 25-inch scale length, which is what PRS typically uses on their guitars. A lot of people don't want gloss necks like this originally had, which PRS offers on a lot of their models. The last complaint that I hear about PRS guitars is that they are too perfect. That is literally a phrase that people use against PRS for a reason why they don't like them, and I think what they're actually trying to say is that PRS guitars don't have any mojo. There's no cute little quirks about them, there's no special unique little defect about them that makes them extra lovable like a 1960s Gibson Les Paul, or like when Fender overwound the pickups on Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat, giving him a legendary guitar sound. These were mistakes that made this era or this year of guitars extra lovable and collectible, and PRS doesn't really have anything like that. Their guitars don't even really relic, so there's nothing like that. In other words, you don't see old PRSs popping up on the Trogley's guitar channel. PRS guitars in general just work. There's nothing that you really have to fight with on your guitar, and some people don't really like that. They like having something to battle, like Josh Smith running 13s on his Telecaster in E standard.
Yeah, they're 13 to 58.
Oh,
standard pitch.
In
yeah.
standard. Oh, that is a lot of work. That is a lot.
That's part of the reason I like it, actually, is it makes you kind of like not phone it in.
There's of course a lot of variation and nuance to this conversation, but that's what I think people are trying to say when they accuse PRS of being too perfect. And I think Andre Flood summarized it better than anyone ever could in this wonderful video right here that I highly encourage all of you to go watch. And I kind of get what people are saying. It definitely doesn't carry the vibes of an old Les Paul or an old Strat. However, I think it has its own vibes, its own kind of mojo, not lacking one entirely. But again, that is entirely subjective. Different guitars speak to different people for different reasons. One more thing to discuss is that a lot of people don't like PRS guitars because they don't like Paul himself, Mr. Paul Reed Smith. Look, we're all adults here, and I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. If you have decided that you will never buy a PRS guitar because you don't like what Paul has said about Tonewood, and because of that one video of him at that guitar clinic where he did admittedly not look that great, then I can't change your mind on that. That is your prerogative. I just encourage you to not purity spiral on what guitars you're going to buy based on what the CEO and company states or market. In other words, there are lots of CEOs, musicians, and builders in the guitar community who say things that the modern market might consider a little cuckoo.
I can take the same board and I can end book match it. So I'm going to take this one and this one, I'm going to match them up to the neck strip in the middle. The reason why that's so cool is you have the same board. Sound-wise, it's going to sound the same. If you're getting your wood from someone already pre-cut, you might not know, if it's the same billet. So not just looks-wise, but sonically, it's going to sound, very similar.
We have an older body, which the main reason for changing to older is my first proper guitar as a kid was made of older, and I remember really enjoying the tonal qualities of this guitar. So we decided to try that instead of the Swamp Ash.
A single pickup, kind of like that just because I've just got this feeling in my gut that there's some kind of tonal increase from not having a pickup there. There's something about it, and when you play them you can just kind of tell, it's just, there's some extra something that goes on. If you want the bridge pickup to sound the best it can, I don't want to speculate on why that is, but it could be for a number of reasons, but for some reason I just really like the idea. Low Pro tremolo, this one has an aluminum base plate actually. Cool. But the knife edges are stainless steel and the saddles are titanium, and it's kind of I think that for what the sound that I'm going for, I don't like the heavy metal actually. I like the most direct thing, just instant transfer of sound and not having sympathetic vibrations of the
Gotcha,
tone.
I
Like
understand
I
that,
find
yeah.
that the low end is cleaner and faster and just like tighter.
Yeah.
And some people will tell you that like it doesn't matter, but it does.
I
Like,
think
if
when
you
we're getting
really
into it.
care that much, it does. Like
Totally.
if you're listening that closely, there is a difference with everything that you
Yeah.
touch on a guitar.
All right, so those are all of the main criticisms that I've seen against PRS in my humble 1 year as a social media influencer. And despite being a certified PRS fanboy, I tried to be fair towards each of the criticisms and find common ground, even agree with a little bit of the points out there. Let me know down below if I missed the mark on any of them, if there's something I'm not understanding, or if there's another reason why you don't like PRS that I just don't know about yet. Now we're going to transition into why I think that this guitar is worth the $4,600 price tag that it currently sits at. Don't think of this as much of a review as it is massive code. Just kidding, the 6'8" autist who's terminally online doesn't give a fuck what anyone thinks. And remember, height is a mindset just like being poor is a mindset. You're not poor, you are pre-rich. So why exactly is this guitar worth $4,600 in my humble opinion? We all know about the stereotypical boomer archetype of someone who buys overpriced guitars because he thinks that more money equals more good, and he falls victim to allegedly scummy marketing tactics about things like tone wood and other stuff that violates the trends of what's accepted as modern guitar wisdom. You know, things like it's all in the pickups, but also you don't need nice pickups. Things like tone wood doesn't matter, stuff like that. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint anyone, but I'm not here to tell you that I love my PRS because of the rich tonal combinations of a mahogany body and a flamed maple neck and the unique 25-inch PRS scale length. Even though I do think that those things affect the tone of this guitar and I do appreciate them, that sure as shit doesn't make it worth $4,600. And I don't really think that anyone is buying PRS guitars because they think that they have some special tone wood combination or that the Phase 3 locking tuners actually make a difference on the tone. I don't think anyone is approaching PRS from the angle of, yeah, I really like the look and the feel of them, but I don't like the sound produced by a flame maple cap and a one-piece mahogany neck. Just like I don't think people are doing the inverse and thinking to themselves, man, I really hate the look of the PRS, the flame maple top look, but I need it for the sound that I'm going after, so I'm gonna buy it. I really don't think that anyone is doing either one of those. It's kind of like when people are speccing out their super Gucci Kiesels, I'm looking at you, John Dretto, and you get something like Buckeye Burl with metal infused, a Buckeye Burl top with metal infused flakes. I don't think anyone gives a flying fuck about the tone wood combinations produced by that. They just want that shit to look cool. And it fucking does, and I want one. And go watch my video on Kiesel for a lot of lore on why I don't play my Kiesel and some interesting opinions. I think all of us are well aware of the fact that no audience is ever going to think to themselves, wow, that Strat tone is really well because he chose a Koa body instead of the typical alder. However, we play guitar for ourselves, and having a good starting position that inspires us to play the things that we want to play and learn is extremely important. So if you can notice the difference, which as I showed earlier, lots of people apparently can, then that matters. But that's not the point of this video. I just wanted to express that I think that no one is actually buying PRS guitars because they think that Paul has some special kind of wood to him. I am very happy to report to you that the trope of PRS making dentist guitars is in fact true with this guitar. Let me tell you the full story of how I came into possession of this guitar. You can probably already tell that I have an interesting family history. My dad was raised by his uncle who loved all of his grandchildren very much, and when he passed, he left us all a little bit of money in a trust fund. And I used that money to buy the guitar that we're talking about today. There was a guitar store in Alpharetta, Georgia named Ken Stanton that I would visit pretty much once a month, and every time I went there, I would try the most expensive guitars that I could find, and the PRSs were obviously among those, and they always looked and sounded the best to me. They felt the best as well, and that's why I was like, I have to have that, because my brain operates in the sense of I want all or nothing. I don't want to make any compromises anywhere. I didn't even fully understand what the fuck a PRS was. I didn't know anything about the specs. I was going solely off of intuition. This was not a time where there was a billion YouTube reviews out there. My original plan was to work through the summer before college and save up as much money as I could so I could get the Ezra Verde version that they had at this store. By the time I was ready to purchase it, someone had already bought the Ezra Verde version and it had been replaced with this charcoal variation. So I ended up paying $4,600 after tax that day and walked out with what would become the love of my life. and that was all 12 years ago. So now this guitar has a lot of sentimental value to me. I have written and recorded a lot of music with it. I've used it in my social media. I've played a little bit of it with other people. It's a very, very special instrument to me. All the music you hear in the background is from my band Firelink and was recorded with on this guitar in C standard. This guitar has quite a bit of road wear on it that I think gives it a really nice character. It shows you that I did not leave this thing in a case. She was not a case queen. She got put through the ringer and she has been dinged up quite a bit. I promise that we're about to get to the actual review of the guitar, but if you want to skip ahead, you can look at the timestamps down below. Trying to justify a $4,600 production guitar is no easy task, and I really just want you guys to understand the angle that I'm coming at it from. I don't think that I'm going to convince most of you that this guitar is in fact worth it, but I just want you to understand why it is from my perspective. A lot of you might be thinking, well, you only say that because you didn't have to pay for it. You basically inherited it, which is true. But I promise you that if I lost this guitar today, the next thing that I would do is save up my money like a mongrel and buy this guitar. It just feels right in my hands. It sounds right. I'm able to express the things that I want to on this guitar, and the price tag for that is totally worth it. It satisfies me. It might not feel the same to you. If you're someone who doesn't like a 25-inch scale length because you tuned a drop C and it doesn't feel right, you're never gonna want this guitar. If you like a 20-inch radius, you're gonna either need to get the Mark Holcomb model or you can't get any PRSs because they have a 10-inch, which is relatively round for like a shredder-esque guitar. This ain't no 12 to 16 compound radius! Maybe you're one of those guys who watches Spectre Sound Studios and thinks that Glenn Fricker's right about everything that he talks about. Some people are convinced that any guitar with a 4-digit price tag is a scam. A lot of people don't like PRS and never will, but they are able to recognize and appreciate why others do. Like my homie over at Top Shelf Gear, who doesn't really like PRS, but he and I have had a lot of good conversations in private about why certain autists like myself like them, and it's been very enlightening. It's been very educational. Hopefully we can have some conversations like that down in the comment sections, or you can hit me with witty one-liners like cope and chill and shit like that. Alright, it's finally review time. Let's go over this guitar in great detail from tip to butt like a fruity member of the Navy, aka anyone who joins the Navy, and I will try to explain to you why I fucking love this thing. Unlike Strandberg, PRS gives you some head with their guitar. You get a subtle reverse headstock, you get these low mass locking tuners that lock from the front right here. You twist these with, I use a butter knife, and then they screw in there, and it's very lightweight. There's no neck dive on this. The tuners always work. They have a good ratio on them. The guitar stays in perfect tune. This is your truss rod access. It's just like a normal traditional truss rod access. Nothing special there. One screw, and then you have the Paul Reed Smith logo there in fancy cursive. Paul will tell you that they affect the tone of the guitar because anything that comes into contact with the strings affects the tone, and I do agree with that, but do I think that it is detectable in any way, shape, or form with whatever the fuck they do with their tuners? Absolutely the fuck not. PRS has a nut that is either bone or synthetic. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really know or care because it works flawlessly. It's cut perfectly. It's very easy to set the string height with it, and it stays in tune phenomenally despite the incredible biased and changing Georgia humidity and climate. PRS uses either a bone or some kind of synthetic nut. It's cut perfectly. It's very easy to do the string heights on there, and it stays in tune phenomenally. There's no buzzing up there. I don't really know what material it is. I don't care because it works. As a side note, I really don't like it when manufacturers don't list every spec in great detail on their website. Like PRS, what the fuck is labeling the nut hardware as PRS? What does that even mean? In the past 10 minutes, the autism has really kicked in. I'm filming this in the morning and I think it's been building up. It's here now. I'm fucking ready. We have a one-piece mahogany neck, which in this case they use their pattern thin profile, which is something like a modern C shape that's a little small but nowhere near like a super thin neck like an Ibanez Wizard or a Jackson Speed profile or the Kiesel thin neck shape. It's small but not very flat. I don't know how, it's just little. It's very easy to get your thumb over it and do those Jimi Hendrix style chords. It's one of my favorite necks ever. And I don't really like super thin necks. Originally it came with a gloss finish on it, but since I dropped it on a desk and got a big old ding in the middle of the finish, it became a little bit sticky once summer hit in Georgia. So this year, I first took a Scotch-Brite pad and wore it down, and then I upped it to a little bit of a steel wool, and now it's something of, it's almost satin. It's not the natural mahogany yet, but it feels so much better now. To be clear, there wasn't a problem with the gloss neck before. I'm a tech death player and I've never had a single problem with it in the Georgia climate. It wasn't until I got a fucking big old hole in it
that I needed to do that.
But to be clear, I wish that they would offer the satin neck found on the Mark Holcomb model on some of the custom 24 models, which are very obviously leaning towards a more modern, dare I say, proggy and metal-centric player. And just like stainless steel frets, those dudes appreciate a satin neck. And this is one of the things where I wish that PRS would just listen to the masses and give the world some kind of S2 custom 24 with an Evertune stainless steel frets and a satin neck. You don't even have to do the Evertune, just give them the pickups that you use in the USA models, and that would be a very competitive model at the $2,000 price point range. Next, we've got the most beautiful rosewood fretboard I've ever seen, and I am not a fan of the look of most rosewood fretboards. This one just does it right for me. It tickles my fancy. It's got a 10-inch fretboard radius, 24 nickel silver frets, and a 25-inch scale length. For those of you who don't know, that 25-inch scale length is between the Gibson standard, which is 24.75 inches, and the Fender standard, which is 25.5 inches. This lends to a darker tone. Shorter scale lengths equals a little bit darker and warmer. The Les Paul doesn't just sound warmer because it has humbuckers and a Strat has single coils. That's not all of it. I don't think that this guitar would sound quite the same if it was the same pickups and specs in a 25.5-inch model, even if it's very subtle. It's not any one spec, it's a combination of everything. It's the pickups and it is the warm mahogany body and the maple cap that makes it just everything is just lending towards a warmer, darker tone. Even if the pickups is 95% of it, I think that it's the little things that contribute to that other 5%, and that doesn't make it worth $4,600, of course. I'm just saying that I think it contributes to the sound of it, which is very nice. I really like the sound of this guitar, which we will get to. The rosewood fretboard creates a beautiful natural binding, which is one of my favorite features of this guitar. A little bit of that binding came off when I sanded down the neck, which originally bummed me out because I think it's such a beautiful feature, but it was well worth the cost of the operation. And the fretwork is obviously perfect. The fretwork on every single PRS guitar that I've played from the core lineup, even the SEs and the S2s, but especially the core lineups, has been absolutely flawless, and I've tried a lot of them at the Platinum Room at the Guitar Center here in Atlanta. And like I mentioned earlier, the stability on this neck is phenomenal. I rarely ever have to adjust the truss rod, and I'm talking about going years without having to make any adjustments whatsoever. The fretboard edges are rolled perfectly. And also, I personally really like the bird inlays. I think they look good. I think it's nice that they have an instantly recognizable look to them. And also, I never have to condition this fretboard. I know that you're supposed to treat rosewood with lemon oil or whatever it may be, but I literally never maintain this guitar, and that's part of the reason why I love it. So all of the things that we just talked about, the scale length, the neck profile, the fretwork, the fretboard radius, all of that lends to how a guitar feels in your hand. It's a huge part of it because your hand is constantly interfacing with it. And if you don't like that, then you're not gonna like a guitar. But if you do like it and it feels right in your hand, then you're gonna fall in love with something. And it's really hard to pull this area off properly. It requires a lot of man-on-man action, handmade guitar action. It requires a lot of human work on this to get it done right. And all of this is a big area where you can tell the general quality and craftsmanship on any guitar. People say the neck is one of the biggest things that they can tell the difference on between a Squier and a Fender, for example. I have felt and played other guitars that feel as nice as this PRS, but I haven't played anything that feels quite nicer than it. As in, these are top of the lines. I have felt Suhrs that feel just as good as these. Fender custom shops, even the Ernie Ball Majesty feels like it's just as finely built in that whole neck and fretwork region. And the Kiesel that I have right here feels like it's within 95% of it at about 60% the cost maybe. And I'm well aware that this isn't going to make sense to a lot of people, and it doesn't have to, but for me, something about this thing just feels right. And I'm probably biased towards it because this is one of the nicest guitars that you could get your hands on at, 17 and 18 years old in general. Just going into a guitar store and having the opportunity to play this over and over and over again compared to other guitars in there, and just feeling the difference and being like, nope, I have to have that. I don't want anything less than that. That's probably why I'm biased, but this is home, baby. I love it. Okay, so this is the set neck joint, and it looks really big and blocky because it is. It's definitely not anything modern. They say that apparently this blockiness right there and where it connects enhances the sustain and maybe a little bit on the tone, and I don't really know about that, but despite how unergonomic looking it is, you can actually get access to all 24 frets on all 6 strings extremely easily, in my opinion, or at least surprisingly so. It certainly isn't as good as, say, a neck through 26 fret BC Rich is, but this is phenomenal. I don't feel like that on their bolt-on models. I do not like the neck joint at all on those. They need to be updated immediately. Honestly, all of them do. At least give it some kind of sculpting right there. When we get to the body, this little horn, this little cutaway right there on the horn actually helps a lot. It's surprisingly comfortable to play on the higher frets. Don't be shied away thinking you can't shred on it. We have a mahogany body with a flame maple cap and a violin carve that provides very nice contouring for your forearm to rest on the guitar. And we also have a belly cut on the back that lets your American fat obeseness sit over very nicely. Your man titty can sit over it. Seriously, 66% of the country is obese, not just fat obese. You probably do have a man titty. Statistically, if you live in America, get at me. Hire me for my personal training services if you want to lose weight, get shredded, or get strong. I'm very good at all of that. I also teach guitar lessons and can help you with any of your music goals, whether it's you want to learn theory, you want to learn technique, you want to work on your social media, you want me to help you produce your own music. I do a lot of that. That's a huge part of what I do, actually, is help people with their own stuff. Look at Firelink for sources for what I was able to pull off on the comfort of my bedroom with this TV right here. Anyway, back to the review. What a good plug. Back to objectifying this guitar for its body. It's a heavy piece of mahogany, but not like super boat anchor heavy like a Les Paul. It's not the thickest body, so I think that helps a little bit, but it definitely has some heft to it. But I like that because when I have a Swamp Ash body and a headstock that has a bunch of locking tuners and shit on it with a long reverse headstock, it'll neck dive. But this thing sits very nice. The headstock's light, first of all, and the actual body itself has enough weight to keep it over your leg. It's an extremely comfortable body and guitar to hold and play. And the flame maple cap gives us a beautiful natural binding around the guitar. That's definitely not something that you're going to get with one of the SEs that come with the veneer, or with even the S2s that have a significantly downgraded figuring on their maple caps. In fact, I don't know if the S2s have any binding at all around their bodies. Holy shit, it's 2026 and we're bringing back objectifying people based on their bodies like it should have been! Over time, the figuring on the cap appears to have taken a little bit of a reddish gold hue to it. It looks like the figuring has morphed a little bit over time. Maybe it's from leaving it out in the sun or my arm rubbing on the gloss finish. I'm not really sure if that would have any effect on it, but over the 12 years of owning this guitar, it looks a lot brighter than it did when I originally got it. It was originally a lot darker in the finish. Maybe the finish is just faded, but I think it looks a lot cooler now than it did when I originally bought it. Or maybe I'm just no longer in a drug-stooped haze where I can appreciate the subtle details of it like never before. And in regards to the back of the body, a lot of times PRS will stain their mahogany bodies black, and I wish that they wouldn't do that as much because you don't get to see any of the figuring whatsoever. It's not a translucent black. It's very plain and it's very boring, and that's something that I do wish was different on this guitar. And the output jack position is great. The cable is never in your way whether you are playing classical, cowboy, or standing. And we have the PRS strap buttons that they make themselves, which are right here and right here. They are very fine. When you put a strap on, there's no problems with the guitar whatsoever. And a quick note, PRS makes everything on their guitar. They're not using like Grover locking tuners or a hip shot bridge. For whatever reason, they choose to have complete control over all of the little things on their guitars. I don't know about some of the tiny screws and whatnot, but it's PRS pickups, PRS knobs, PRS bridge, PRS nut, all that stuff, which I think is something to applaud. I kind of appreciate that narcissism and that autism of wanting complete control like that and thinking that other stuff might work and our stuff might not even work better, but it's our shit and we're gonna do it that way. I like that. It gives actual personality, in my opinion. People act like they get offended by that kind of energy. What do you want? Like some fucking stale, boring ass cookie cutter, easy bake oven CEO who just never even shows his face, never even comes out on camera and talks about his product. Everything is just polished with corporate sands and all that. Is that what you want? I think that's a boring world to live in. I want actual personality. The bridge is PRS's Gen 2 6-point tremolo, and it is one of the best 6-point tremolos with a non-locking system that I have ever tried on any guitar, possibly the best. It comes with 4 springs in the back and this big ass piece of brass. I really like the brass facts channel. There's no sharp spots on it. It's very easy and comfortable to rest your hand there for palm muting. It's super easy to make your intonation and height adjustments. It's like any Strat style bridge. It's super easy. And this is coming from a guy who hates setting up his guitars. And it stays in tune extremely well when you do all of the wheedly shit with the trem bar. But I don't use a trem bar, and I'm gonna tell you why. This is a very educational story for the youth, so pay attention. After I got this guitar, I very quickly went off to college a few months later where I lost the little rubber insert that holds the trem arm in there. I actually have the arm, but I don't have that little insert, so the trem arm just falls out. I was doing what Kyle would refer to as nose beers at that time and wasn't paying attention, and I remember being a little bit upset with myself for having lost that. And whenever I tried to get it replaced, I was either not contacting the correct people at PRS, or more likely than not, I was too retarded to figure out how to actually contact them. Fast forward to the modern era, I've been off of that shit for well over 10 years now at this point, and when I ask PRS if I can get that rubber insert replacement, they tell me that I now have to upgrade to the new PRS Gen 3 bridge, that they don't make the actual part that would hold that arm in there. So my options were to suffer and get the PRS Gen 3 trim, or MacGyver this shit and wrap a bunch of duct tape around the trem arm and shove it in there, which works totally fine, albeit not really that great, but it works. And that is the story of why Harrison does not play guitars with tremolo arms. But I had a buddy who left his Ernie Ball Majesty with me for a full month, and I was able to play around with that bridge that had a nice trem system on it, and now I want that trem arm back, and I might actually upgrade to the Gen 3 trim. This whole tremolo bridge thing has been a very emotional roller coaster for me, if you cannot tell. And for the record, I used to run this guitar in C standard with 12 through 60s on there because of that shorter scale length of 25 inches. And that was like playing with bridge cables relative to the fact that I play in standard with 9s now. All of the music you hear in the background with Firelink was recorded with that setup in C standard with those 12 through 60s. We're on the home stretch. We're talking about pickups and electronics. These are the PRS 5708 humbucker pickups that they were using in the Custom 24 line back in 2013. Since then, they have gone through the 8515 pickups and now the DMO ones. The 57 stands for the year that Gibson first introduced the PAF pickups in 1957 Les Pauls, and the 08 stands for the year that PRS conceived these pickups, hence 5708. Wow, we're geniuses. These are by far the best pickups I have ever used in my life. They are full body, warm, creamy, and have a very nice range of harmonic overtones where when you just strum a chord, it just rings out kind of like what I imagine a 1957 Les Paul did. And it also has enough high end in there where it cuts through a mix. I know that that's a cliche thing to say, but it just does. It cuts through a mix without being piercing and brittle and losing that bottom and mid range. It always seems to sit very well balanced out the gate without as much tweaking needed at the amp and EQ level compared to my other guitars. And it's also just, it's very expressive passive pickups. You have a large amount of headroom in there from expression where I'll demonstrate all this, but as you play harder, you can get more distortion out of it, or play softer and get back down to a cleanest edge of breakup tone. Rolling off the volume in the tone knob actually is a good viable option and opens up a new tonal palette for you. It's not something to just ignore and leave everything on 10 all the time. These pickups are fucking incredible. I like them way better than the 8515 set in the current DMO set. It's super cliche to say that this guitar can do everything, but this guitar really can do everything. I have used it in C standard metal because with high gain, it's so good. I don't know how to explain it. People know that the Mark Tremonti is one of the best bridge pickups for high gain and metal stuff. It's like a secret gem, and I feel like these pickups are the same. Pinch harmonics on them for some reason are so easy and fun to do. I can't express it enough. I'm going to try to. Hopefully you can hear it in the songs in the background, but we're going to do a full tone demo in just a second. It's got a master volume and a master tone knob with a 5-way pickup switch. Position 5 is the bridge humbucker, position 4 is split inner coils, position 3 is the bridge and neck humbucker full, position 2 is the bridge humbucker and the split neck coil, position 1 is the bridge pickup. There's no push-pulls involved in this. It's pretty straightforward and simple, which is something that I've come to appreciate over time. The split coil sounds don't sound exactly the same to a Stratocaster in a direct comparison. They have their own kind of feel. They sound good, they just don't sound like position 4 on a Strat. That is its own thing. I would not expect that on the PRS split coil systems, and that even applies to their 2408 models and the ones where you can tap and split things with the mini toggles. They sound good, they just don't sound like Strat pickups. They also don't sound like the split coil options on things like Jacksons with bare knuckles and Fishmans, or Kiesel with their 5-way selectors. The PRS sounds like its own kind of thing. All right, so I know I've said a few times in this video that we're gonna do a tone demonstration, but now that I'm here and I got ready to film and record, I both realized and accepted that that would be a pointless endeavor for two major reasons. For starters, a major portion of the viewers will hop off once the guitar playing and the tone demos start. In other words, people want less playing and more talking. You can ask Andre Flood, he knows all about this. Another thing is that so much goes into the sound of an electric guitar that if I'm picking bad amp settings, it's going to sound horrible no matter how good the guitar is, or how nice the pickups are, or how good the tone wood is. Whatever it may be, there's a lot of factors that affect the sound of an electric guitar, and it's very preferential. So the best thing that I can suggest, so you can get a good idea of how this guitar sounds, is for you to go listen to my music in Firelink, where I used that guitar, so you can get a real world idea of what that guitar sounds like in a mix. It was used in all of the songs that I highlighted on screen for clean guitars, rhythm guitars, and the solos. I also have a plethora of videos of me on my Instagram channel playing that guitar for you to get a good idea of what it sounds like in a more isolated setting. There's so much that you can do to make pretty much any electric guitar sound pretty good, even if you don't like the way it sounds out of the box with its stock configuration and stock pickups. I wouldn't encourage anyone to buy a guitar or to not buy a guitar strictly because of the sound. I would view that as a happy bonus, something that you don't really have to fiddle around with after you've already bought the guitar. And personally, I don't think that there's anyone in the world who would feel the need to change the pickups on that guitar right there. But if you are one of those people who likes and appreciates a tone demonstration in a video like this, let me know down below and I will keep that in mind when I'm making my next video. Let's wrap up this video. I'm gonna try to win y'all over now by having some dog in the screen.
Oh, let's use you to win over some extra subscribers. Let's get everyone give me a thumbs up for Electra.
So at the end of the day, I don't really think that I'm going to be able to convince too many people that this guitar is worth the $4,600 price tag, because I don't really know if I can convince too many people that any guitar is worth a $4,600 price tag, let alone one that is a production model and not a custom guitar. I understand why people would never get on board with any guitar with that kind of price tag, and I also understand people's complaints and grievances with PRS, whether it's with Paul or the guitars themselves. Some people are never going to be fans of PRS, and that is totally fine. The whole point of this video was to go over some of the criticisms that people have with PRS, to discover if some of them are warranted or not, and to tell you guys why this really expensive guitar is in fact worth it in my eyes, and why it holds such a special place in my heart, and I wouldn't be the man that I am today without it. I know that sounds so cheesy, but that's the truth. I wouldn't be sitting on this couch where I am today without this guitar, and to me, that is something that is completely priceless, just like this little dog right here.